Imagine, like, a body dense enough to just sit down and eat a meal, but but also capable of walking straight through a solid locked door without breaking it.
Yeah, which, I mean, for centuries we just called a ghost story.
Right. But today, we're unpacking a concept that actually calls it quantum thermodynamics. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
And our mission today is really exploring this dense, multidisciplinary theory that merges ancient biblical linguistics, quantum physics, and, well, thermodynamics to propose a transphysical theory of resurrection.
Yeah, and before we dive in, we really need to be crystal clear with you on something. This deep dive contains some highly specific theological and scientific claims.
Very specific.
Right. And we are strictly here to impartially report on the content provided in our sources. So we're not, like, endorsing these viewpoints.
Oh, endorsement.
Yeah, we're just merely conveying the fascinating ideas laid out in the material.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, because the core problem we have to tackle first is Cartesian dualism.
Right, the big one.
Yeah, that historical assumption that physical matter and, like, spiritual reality are entirely fundamentally separate.
Yeah.
Because to even begin to understand a quantum resurrection, you have to completely unlearn the assumption that the word spiritual just means ghostly.
It's so true. And to break that assumption, we have to look at the ancient Greek lexicon, specifically the phrase soma pneumatikon.
Which usually gets translated as spiritual body, right?
Right, exactly. But what's fascinating here is the Greek suffix, the ikos part. Because in Koine Greek, adjectives ending in ikos don't describe what an object is made of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they actually describe its animating force.
Okay, which brings up the steamship analogy from the text. Because, a steamship is driven by steam, but it obviously isn't made out of steam.
Precisely.
So a soma pneumatikon isn't a body made of ethereal mist. It's a robustly material body that is animated and driven entirely by spirit rather than by a frail biological metabolism.
It's like a completely different power source.
Yeah. But wait, hold on. If it's still a physical body, I mean, it is not being replaced, right? Does it just get some kind of immense quantum upgrade?
Basically, yes. The texts use another Greek word, metastatizo.
Okay.
And this means an outward structural reconfiguration rather than, a destruction of the original form. It essentially creates a dual mode existence.
Dual mode?
Yeah. Think about the Pauli exclusion principle.
Right. The quantum mechanical rule that stops electrons from overlapping.
Exactly. Which is essentially what gives matter its physical solidity.
Right.
So this upgraded body can operate normally and consume broiled fish, but it can also command its particles to bypass that Pauli exclusion limit.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's what would allow it to phase shift and pass right through solid matter, like a locked door.
Okay, I have to pump the brakes here.
Sure.
How does biological matter suddenly achieve that kind of quantum mastery? Like, what is the actual mechanism that triggers a phase shift like that?
Well, for that, we look at the Hebrew word shabel. That's the silver cord mentioned in the book of Ecclesiastes.
Right, the non-physical tether.
Yeah, conceptually, this is the tether connecting the transphysical soul to the biological host. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the theory argues that eschatological reanimation,
Or resurrection.
right, resurrection, it involves this cord snapping back into the body.
But wait, how does a non-physical tether reconnecting actually trigger anything? The claim here is that this collision causes an instantaneous 34 terawatt burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation.
A massive number.
Yeah. How does a metaphysical cord cause a measurable radiation burst? And wouldn't 34 terawatts just instantly vaporize a human body?
Well, in classical physics, absolutely. But the theory suggests this transdimensional energy transfer acts as a thermodynamic trigger.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because the animating force of the body is now entirely transphysical, the atoms literally don't burn.
Oh, wow.
Instead, the incredible energy forces the biological body into a state of mechanical transparency. So the atoms essentially convert into structured light.
Structured light.
Yeah, rendering the body physically transparent to its surroundings.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because that mechanical transparency perfectly explains the empirical imprint on the Shroud of Turin.
It does, yeah.
Like, forensic dental surgeons looking at the shroud notice a detail called the incisal plane. They found that the roots of the man's teeth are actually visible beneath the closed lips on the cloth.
Right. Because If the body briefly achieved mechanical transparency while emitting that massive UV burst, it wouldn't just scorch the surface of the linen.
It would penetrate it.
Exactly. It would act exactly like a massive transphysical X-ray. It projects a three-dimensional blueprint of the internal skeletal architecture right onto the collapsing cloth.
That is incredible.
It really is. It's imprinting its physical history into a new, incorruptible state.
So what does this all mean for you?
Well, I think it deeply challenges our modern tendency to just compartmentalize knowledge.
Yeah. It suggests that maybe ancient texts and modern empirical science aren't actually enemies. They might just be using two entirely different vocabularies to describe, the exact same incredible phenomena.
Yeah, which raises an important question, and it's a profound one for you to explore on your own.
Mm-hmm.
If ancient languages were perfectly describing quantum mechanical phase shifts and high-energy thermodynamics thousands of years before modern physics even had the vocabulary for it,
Right.
what other modern scientific breakthroughs might be hiding in plain sight within ancient wisdom literature, just waiting for us to translate